record to computer.
Welcome to the next perfect step. I'm Lori Tremblay.
And I'm Kim McStay.
And today we welcome back a former guest, Deepak Chari. We're so excited to have him back with us to talk about his advanced biofeedback technique. Deepak is a co-founder of the Chari Center of Health. He's an engineer and certified biofeedback specialist and the creator of the Life Transformation Technology Program with advanced voice biofeedback to promote emotional healing, mental clarity, and peak performance. We're happy to have you back. And we've had some viewers ask some questions about your last visit with us. So we'd like to just have you back to talk with us about what you do again, and then maybe to ask you some follow-up questions. We will also put a link to our first podcast with you in this episode. So welcome, Deepak. So glad to have you back with us.
And thank you so much for having me on your show, Kim and Lori. It's just such a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, we enjoy it. I was fascinated with the conversation on the last podcast. So tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you got here. And for those of you that want to hear more detailed, go back to the first podcast because it was very interesting. So.
Yes, absolutely. What you discussed about my work, advanced voice biofeedback, again, the voice, why the voice? The voice I found in all my research and what my training is the most accurate reflection of your subconscious mind. And for your listeners and viewers, which is below your awareness, subconscious, under your awareness. And 95 to 99%, I have found at least, of our mind is subconscious under our awareness. The 1% where we think we're doing everything is, I got to get my groceries. Oh, I forgot the lemons. I forgot this, but our subconscious runs all our organs too, by the way, our heart, our lungs and everything. It doesn't go, oh, shoot, I forgot to do the heart. I'll do better next time. There's no next time, right? So all these patterns that are even limiting patterns in our subconscious, which are every sight, sound, taste, smell, in emotion, and every millionth of a quadrillionth of a second is stored in our subconscious, even things we're not aware of. And these are patterns from our childhood going forward. So I am doing this work, but I didn't know I'd be doing this work. It started with my own challenging journey as a kid. And in my case, I perceived I was being bullied by kids. And I think I was from my whole childhood, from the age of 8 all the way forward, basically. And then I was searching for a solution and I eventually found it. So what I would do, and just kind of a brief overview, of course, they can watch episode 1 that you had with the interview with me, is I would hide in the library. The library was my safe haven because I was a bookworm, kind of a loner kind of kid because I was so insecure and no confidence or anything. So I would hide in the aisles of the library, grabbing random books, which I found were not so random later on the law of attraction, how to win friends and influence people, how to manifest with your subconscious and things like that, And that would keep me going and keeping me positive to deal with my challenging situation once I left the library and had those bullies and all. So fast forward, once I graduated from high school, I thought this bullying pattern would end. But it didn't. It continued in different ways. Instead of being pushed around, I was like, well, you don't fit in our group, Deepak. You don't fit with us, And so I was alone again. But then on top of that, I was drawing the most negative, horrible, manipulative, cruel, condescending, every word you can think of, gaslighting, a person in the book these were my friends, my classmates, my professors, and my relationships. I mean, everybody. And I thought, wow, this is all I'm attracting, the same kind of bullying pattern. Well, I guess this is how my life is. It's better I have these people than nobody, right? So now going back to my childhood also, because what happened is I would always give my father his high blood pressure medication. And he was stressed out. And I didn't know why he was stressed out. I'd found out later. And he suddenly died of a heart attack at the age of 51. Mm-hmm. So then my sister and I decided we need to do something about this. So my sister said, you know what? I'm going to go into medicine, but I'm going to study natural medicine because clearly the pharmaceutical approach didn't work for him. And I said, I'm going to study engineer in tribute to him. But fast forward, we also decided we need to form a center that gets to the root cause versus the symptoms of why these things happen. And thus forming the Chari Center of Health. That's my last name, our last name, in tribute to our father, who unfortunately was taken out at a young age. But I found out later on, why did that even happen? Is because he himself was bullied from a childhood age and then all the way later on by his bosses and other people. But he didn't know how to handle it. He didn't want to burden his family with it. That is my mom and my younger sister and me. So he held it in, and that's what happened. Thus, when we formed the Chari Center of Health, I was working as an engineer, and I saw all the people my sister healed with her in her medical doctor way, but in a natural way. I was working as an engineer, improving productivity and efficiency. In all these companies I worked in, the bosses and managers loved me. But when I saw the people's lives she changed, the person who was not well, let's say health-wise, everybody's always taking care of them, right? Because they're always sick and they're always worried about them. But when that person is healthy, then everybody's life is fantastic. So I said, you know what? I want to do something too in our own center that I'm co-managing with her. But what am I going to do? How can I help heal people? Thus leading me to my childhood, where I grabbed those random books from the shelf on manifesting and confidence. I said, I'll talk to the universe. Universe, can you somehow guide me in some way to help heal people? Just like my sister's doing, but I in some way with my engineering technical background, because I also want to do something different than this conventional engineering kind of thing I'm doing. Well, within 2 weeks later, I was introduced by some friends to a guy who's going to be speaking close to where I was located. I was in San Diego at the time, in Santa Monica, about how your voice reveals all your limiting thoughts, negative emotions, negative perceptions, limiting thoughts, and how totally accurately reveals them. But most importantly, how when you created computerized voice maps of someone's subconscious through their voice, you can find out what frequencies they need to literally clear out those limiting emotions that the person had. Grief, anger, sadness, fears, phobias, emotional trauma, emotional triggers, whatever it is. So I was so excited about this. So as I heard the presentation, I thought, these light bulbs went off in my head. Hey, this is very technical. I have a technical background. I wonder if I could do this. And then I thought also, wait a minute, you know what? I've been bullied my whole life. Could this be a pattern? Or is this just something I have to deal with? So I went up to him and I said, I would like to apprentice with you and to learn this technology. He said, okay, well, I'm just going to take one more person really on, handful of people. And I was one of the last few. Apparently he had some health conditions. I didn't know that at the time, but I was in the right place at the right time.
Oh, yeah.
So I learned all of this technology and I was so excited. And I said, you know what? The first person I'm going to work on was myself. Because if this is a program, this bullying pattern, and if I can clear it, then I can do the same for so many others. Just like the movie The Matrix. Have you both seen The Matrix?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Remember Morpheus and Neo? So Neo was, I was basically working on myself as Neo and Morpheus both. But he basically took a regular average guy, cleared all the limiting programs, and he became sort of like a superhero without any limiting beliefs. So I did the same for myself. I could see in the computerized voice map how that limiting pattern was cleared because it's reflected in your voice. And I said, well, let's see what happens. Well, remember I had all those negative, horrible people in my life? Remember I was just tolerating them? Suddenly, after I cleared this pattern, they go, Deepak, you don't fit with us anymore. We don't want to be around you. So they all left. My relationships, my friends, my classmates, horrible, terrible people. They all left. And I go, oh my God, my worst fear. They all left me. Now I'm alone. But no worries, because I just sat with it. And 2 weeks later, around 2 to 3 weeks later, these wonderful people started appearing seemingly randomly in my life. Loving, positive, nurturing in all areas. Classmates, friends, relationships, everything. New employers. And I go, oh my gosh, this is what life can be. So it was a program. It was a program. And these programs can be cleared. I don't even know what positivity is, or nurturing, or loving, or positive. But these are what these people are. So that means anyone can experience it, even if they don't know what it's like. And then from then on, I started working on one person after another till hundreds and maybe more, many more than that, all over the US and world benefit from my work.
That's fantastic. Wow. What a story. What a great journey you had to bring you to this point to help other people and to help yourself and to learn how to clear those negative programs. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes those hardships that we have bring us into the line of work that we're in. And
Yeah.
I think that's really important for people to understand that, it might look really dire, but it could be setting you up for being able to do wonderful things for other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I didn't know that would take me on that course of that, but it was so inspiring.
Mm-hmm. So now, like I'd like you to go into like explaining how it works, but one of the questions that I have is like you've been working with the machinery behind it and the technology behind it. Can you actually now intuitively hear in people's voices certain things, or do you have to rely on the technology to help you find that?
So now I've been doing it, I can't believe it, for 20 years. I started
Wow.
in 2005. So, but in the beginning, yes, I mean, I would use the software and the technology for creating voice maps. But after doing it over and over and over, like thousands of times, then I started going, oh, I think I heard something. Then let me confirm that with the voice map computerized analysis. Oh yeah, there it is. So then, yeah, I got more polished and also I improved the techniques and how I, improvise things with what frequencies to send when, and that's very intuitive. So I would say 70% of the work I do is intuitive, and I'm an engineer by background, and 30% is pure technical.
Wow.
And that's the interesting thing is engineers, because they were very left brain in general, all my engineer friends, and they never admit about intuition, though they make their decisions by that, because there'll be 2 or 3 options to choose from, but they'll choose one, and I'll tell them, okay, I see the 3 options, and you chose this, and it was definitely a good one, but the data from those is pretty similar. So how did you distinguish this was the best one? Well, based on my analysis and the data, it looks da da da. I said, well, that's true, but they're still pretty much close. They're all pretty good solutions, but this was even way better. How did you know that? So they're like, they were trying to explain it. I go, oh, I know. It was your intuition, wasn't it? Your intuition is why. No, it wasn't. They really didn't.
Of course, yeah.
Of course. So fortunately, I'm a very right brain kind of engineer, so I use my whole brain. So, but engineers don't talk about it. But that's in this case, 70% is intuitive.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I just read something recently where it said like the old outdated like programming that we've been all subject to is always telling people that, hey, you're eccentric if you're using your intuition. That's a fantasy. That's not real. But in reality, it's our natural abilities coming through. And we've been told, no, that's you're strange, or so those people that your friends are thinking, I can't admit to this because they'll think I'm eccentric or strange or odd. But when it's really a natural thing, and it's really your natural abilities coming through that hasn't been accepted, by the mainstream programming, I would say.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And, oh, you're using that foo-foo stuff. I said, no, it's very intuitive. What are you talking about? You said, but I said, I'm nailing it with every single client used with my intuition. So, and helping to change their lives, most importantly, which I'm there to serve them. So how is that woo-woo stuff?
Right.
It's our natural gift, like you said.
Yeah. Right.
And I think more and more people are opening up to that, which is so nice.
Yes.
Hallelujah to that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So can you explain to us how this all works? What you use for technology and how it all works?
So in a session, which is done remotely, I used to do them in person, but now the technology has been advanced. I can do it remotely, especially since all that COVID happened all that time. I had to reinvent myself. But it's very awesome because the person doesn't have to travel anywhere. They can do it from the comfort of their home. And I do it using Zoom and, of course, an app that they download to their computer, Windows computer, to work with me. And I have them wear a headset with a swing down mic. And I listen to their energy of their voice, not what the words are saying, but the energy of the emotions and that are subconscious thoughts from their voice. And I do samplings of about maybe 15 to 20 seconds at a time. So for example, if someone comes into my office and they're like Deepak, my boyfriend just broke up with me and I'm so upset. I thought we had something going and, or he cheated on me or whatever it is. And then of course they're upset about it. So I'll say, please share with me about that. So they may go on longer about it, but the actual sampling that I need to capture the voice is about 50, 20 seconds. It'll capture the meat of it. And it's like an emotional heat map telling what's the high, what's the extreme, or what's the areas that are not so high, and plot it all together on a circular voice map, which is a kind of a way of looking at your whole subconscious. And it also even will share with me not only the emotions and the intensity of the emotions that they're harboring within, but where they're even holding it in their body. And then based on this science, and I'll explain it to all of your listeners and viewers like this. Let's imagine we have 60 trillion cells in our body. Some people say, hey, Deepak, we have 100 trillion. Okay. Well, let's just go with the 60 trillion, okay? That's a lot more than I can even count up to. So let's imagine every cell in our body has a keyboard, but only with 12 keys. But Deepak, on a piano, I see like hundreds of keys. What do you mean 12 keys? Well, once you learn some music theory, and you don't need to know this, but I'll share the key of it. Even though you see hundreds of keys on a piano, there are only 12 keys that repeat. And there's low notes and high notes of the same note. Those are called octaves. But it's the same 12 keys, so there's only 12 keys you need to know. So those 12 keys are in every cell, okay? I listen for those notes. And the science of this work, which is based on, many years of data, says that if you don't have any harboring emotions, and I haven't seen anyone who doesn't, but if you don't have any, I will hear all the notes in your voice, okay? But if someone's coming to see me, obviously there's some issue going on. They have an emotional issue. But if you do have some issue, anger, sadness, regret, fear, worry, emotional trauma, low self-confidence, low self-worth, different emotions squash different notes of that 12-key keyboard. In other words, if they squash the emotions, the negative emotions, I can't hear those notes in their voice. So I'm listening to not only what I can hear of their voice, note-wise, but what I cannot hear of their voice. And those will be the high or extreme emotions that they're harboring in that moment. Even emotions they're not even aware of. So once I know those suppressed emotions, I will also know which notes are squashed and which notes I need to I call it reverse engineer to get to play again. So imagine there's a key and anger. He broke up with me. I couldn't believe it. So that anger is sitting on certain keys, not more, even usually a couple, squashing them. So I can't hear those notes in your voice. So I will reverse engineer it. I will get this key to play versus dealing with the emotion, that particular emotion squashed, right? Different emotions squash different keys. So let's say it's this note. I get this note to play through a process called sympathetic resonance. I'll explain what that is in a second. And once the key starts to play, boom, that emotion is just lifted out of there. And your person will start feeling it release. So for instance, if on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say they have a level 10, that means really intense emotion, right? So I do a round. A round means I send them frequencies for a couple minutes, 2 to 3 minutes at a time. I have them close their eyes, have them place their hand on this technology, which I as a practitioner send to them, which sends those frequencies through their hand chakra, hand energy center, which is representative of their whole body. And those frequencies go into every cell in their body. These are harmonic and other advanced technologies to resonate every cell. In other words, every cell has the keyboard to resonate those stuck notes in every cell that's not playing because of that anger in all the cells at the same time in unison. So I'm creating harmony in the body when there's disharmony. When I create harmony in the body, any disharmonious thoughts cannot coexist in an otherwise harmonized environment. Okay, so then those notes will start to leave and the person will leave it. They may have had this for 20 years, 30 years. One lady who had depression for 65 years. Now, I'm not saying it'll clear in one session, but we'll start lowering that number. So maybe from a level 10, even in that round, it could drop to a 7 in one round, a couple minutes. And then I will do another round. I'll say, close your eyes again. Think about that challenging situation where this person broke up with you and how upset you were. during those couple minutes, and I will send those specific frequencies again to get the note to play, and it'll start dropping 10, 7, 5, 4. And then eventually, if it takes a couple of sessions, this might have been there for 20, 30, 40 years. Then I'll say, how do you feel now? Wow, I'm feeling pretty good. I said, well, what about that breakup that you had with your boyfriend that was supposed to marry you? She goes, yeah, that was a bad thing that happened, no question. But you know what? I'm not feeling bad about it. I think I deserve better than that. They'll say to me, I'm a confident woman, and I settled for something less than I deserve. So I think I'm going to be more screening of who I get this time, because I know that was because I was not believing in myself. They'll say this on their own, not me.
Right.
Because we're taking the unresourceful way it was wired in their subconscious before and rewiring it in a completely different way. So the steps that I do is I find out how it's wired. I send the frequencies to match that same limiting wiring, open that up, release the emotional charge stored in that wiring, and then reconnect it in a completely different way, which means they will have a completely different perception of a previously limiting, challenging incident, and thus feel more confident and actually become stronger from it, which is ultimate mastery.
I love the way you talked about the keyboards, because I'm a pianist, and so that makes total sense to me. And
that's great.
Yeah, I love that. It totally, I understand that now. How you explained
That's great.
it.
Yeah, that was
yes.
Even for a non-musician, that was a very good explanation. That really, I understood.
I'm so glad,
that.
because as a non-musician, if I can explain it to them, then I've really, I got the message across. And I talked about a concept I said I was going to go into earlier called sympathetic resonance. In other words, and you may be able to relate to that, Lori, but if that key is stuck, right? So let's say you have two pianos, piano A and piano B. I go to piano A and I push the pedal key down. Bum. I hope that's A. Bum. Now, because the pianos are connected, and this is not an electronic piano. This is a regular old-fashioned string piano. The note A won't automatically go down on the second piano, but that string connected to that A will resonate, and you'll actually hear it resonating. That's called sympathetic resonance. Like frequencies resonate like frequencies, right? So when I had that limiting bullying pattern, and I'll explain where that came from, I was drawing that same kind of pattern of people into my life because I was matching that limit without realizing it. It was unconscious under my awareness. But when I released it and harmonized everything, then I drew wonderful harmony and wonderful people who are harmonious to me too, in the same way.
So we have a friend that does crystal bowls, and he, and I've heard the bowls resonate with another bowl.
Yes.
So I've, you've heard that too.
I have.
And that's really interesting because it's the vibration of the sound, but it's sympathetically resonating with another bowl, and those both start resonating together, which is amazing. Right. Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Excellent example.
Yeah. And like the entanglement theory, where you have some action here and it's felt in a whole different dimensional plane,
right?
Which is pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in space too. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the concept here. That's exactly right. Yeah. And the thing is though, if you don't at the same time create a shift in this, it'll keep repeating this pattern over and over again. In other words, I would have kept drawing these horrible negative people my whole life. Because I worked with a lady who was 90 and she was severely depressed, and she had been doing, I'm not saying anything against any kind of modalities, but she had been doing talk therapy for 65 years. I mean, that's how long she did the therapy for. Wow. And she still was depressed. So she came to me, somehow found out about me. I'm so a 90-year-old lady coming to me. That's awesome. And she told me about what's going on in her life. Everyone hated her. She hated life, didn't want to live another day, very vengeful, very bitter. So I started working on her. And as I started clearing those imprints and patterns, suddenly she went back to her retirement home, and there's all these gifts at her door, wine bottles, cheese, letters. She's like, what? Apparently people suddenly thought, as I'm clearing the field with her, that she's the key person that connects everyone in that whole place, that complex, that retirement home. Yeah. And she was the public enemy number one, remember?
Right.
So suddenly she became the number one person. And what ended up happening is all these people invited her to their family reunions. And she's not even a family member, to sit at the head table. And she got all these friends out of nowhere from having nobody and being alone. Then she came to me for a follow-up session. She said, Deepak, I have all these friends. I never had any. I said, that's wonderful, ma'am. That's fantastic. But I have a problem, Deepak. What problem? You had no friends. You didn't have any passion for life. You love life. You love each day. What's the problem? Well, I'm going to have to say no to half of them because I can't go to all their reunions. How do I say no to these women? How? I said, it's no problem. I can help you with that. So everyone started changing around her, and she didn't do anything differently. The bold's resonating, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So on the average, I know this is a very variable question, but on the average, about how many sessions does it usually take to start the process or to help the process really flourish?
That's a great question. That's a great question. So I start out with 9 foundational sessions, and everyone varies. Some people have some very heavy trauma, mental, emotional, physical abuse. I've dealt with a lot of people who had that. Some people have, it's a lot of stuff, but not as much. But I found in general, there's a baseline of that many sessions. Because is it okay if I go over those 4 phases of why we even have these patterns to begin with?
Sure.
Briefly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So why did I get this bullying pattern? Why does anyone get any of these patterns? Women come to me all the time. Deepak, I'm attracting the most narcissistic, mean, manipulative men. I'm a caring, honest woman. Why am I drawing these terrible people in my life over and over again? Even if I break up with them, I draw the same kind of person again. I'm a good person. Am I being punished? What's going on? And I'll say, no, you're not being punished. It's a programming within you that you had that you didn't realize. And this is what I found. And of course, when I clear it, then all kinds of amazing things happen. For example, that woman who was drawing horrible people after her, neurotic and psychotic and all these kind of things, she said, suddenly they started becoming wonderful, nurturing, caring men. She couldn't even dream of men like that. She said they were like from a storybook. And they got better and better as they started clearing these patterns. That's the cool thing about it. Some women come to me for that, just for that kind of thing. So there are 4 phases we all go through. The first phase is when your parents decide to procreate you. And I know I'm being direct here, but this is quantum science. Think of it that way. We are being procreated by our parents. So they say, okay, I want to have this child, girl or boy. But in the process of creating you, a certain percentage, which I can quantify with my technology, of their unresolved emotions gets downloaded in the process. So think of this. You go to a store, you buy a brand new laptop, right? It's brand spanking new. Nothing on it. And it runs beautiful. But then you get this virus program on there, which actually happened to me. A very high-end computer. Suddenly, it crashes the whole thing. I go back to the computer repair guy and say, how much can you give me for this computer? He goes, I'll give you 1 penny. What? I paid a fortune for this. Yeah, but the virus destroyed everything. Virus thinking can do the same thing too, right? Or negative thinking. So a certain percentage of those unresolved emotions from both mom and dad gets downloaded to the kid. What if the dad said, I'm not happy in my life right now. I should have been in a much better position than now. Someone took my place. I had a rough childhood, never got over it. I'm with a woman who I'm not so happy with. I hope it gets better. That goes into the mix. The mom, oh gosh, I wasn't ready to have a kid. I hope this relationship with this guy works out. Hopefully the kid will bring us together more. And all these things go into the kid's energy field. That's phase 1. But guess what? Certain percentage of the unresolved emotions from all the grandparents gets downloaded in phase 1 too. Mom's mom, mom's dad, dad's mom, and dad's dad. Yes, but Deepak, they all died before I was born, my grandparents, so they won't affect me at all. Correction, they may be affecting you more than your own parents. I've quantified it and seen that a lot of times. So that's phase 1. So that's in your energy field. Otherwise, you have nothing in your hard drive. Now you go to phase 2. Phase 2 is when you're in your mom's womb for 9 months incubating, but also not only the nutrients from mom, but every thought, feeling, and emotion your mom is having directly. if she's unhappy in her life, with other situations, she's unhappy with your dad, if they're fighting, whatever's going on in that environment, turbulent environment it could be, the kid picks up on all that. Now phase 3 comes around where you're born. You already had 2 phases downloaded. Now you have the direct interface with those parents, grandparents potentially, uncles, aunts, teachers, other people older than us, influencing us in a big way. And I've quantified this. And I found out from the age of 0, from the time you're born, till the time you're 12 or 13, whatever is said and done, mental, emotional, physical abuse too, is taken and accepted like okay. Especially 0 to 7. You don't question it. You're in a state of pure absorption. You're like a deep rishi or yoga person, or, a monk. You're as a kid. You can make them a genius, a Mozart, but you can also program with negative things too. 0 to 7, nothing's questioned. 8 to 12, more of the same. You question a little bit, but you accept it. Now you have a blueprint from 0 to 12 of how you see the world, how you perceive the world, what you believe in yourself or not believe in yourself, and what you draw into your life. And this blueprint from 0 to 12 is what imprints into the future, thus leading us to phase 4. And phase 4 is when you take the imprints of your parents, grandparents, your own challenging childhood, and you imprint that into your own life, creating the same patterns that your parents and grandparents did, and then into your kids' lives in the future. And then they do the same thing. So when I created what I call my life transformation technology program, I designed it so that it will literally blast you out of that repeating cycle that keeps going on and on and on, and leading you into a whole new universe of thinking differently, drawing different wonderful things into your life, not only for yourself, but your future generations.
That's exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting.
Right? That gives people a lot of hope to just be able to get out of that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There is hope. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah. And like you said, it's so subconscious that, it can be going on forever and ever and ever. And, until it gets blasted out, it's just going to keep repeating.
It will keep repeating. Absolutely. I heard this expression, Deepak, time heals all wounds. Let's say you had a breakup or trauma or whatever. Well, with the 90-year-old lady, I didn't see that the case. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
There's a book even written about that. If you don't clear the trauma, it just keeps repeating over and over and over again. But if you clear it, yes, there's no limit to where you can go. Enjoy
and what a
happiness
gift.
And everything.
Yeah. What a gift for her to be able to experience that before she passed on and had to repeat everything again, if you believe in reincarnation.
Yes, I happen to. But answer, absolutely yes.
Yeah.
That gave me such gratification, like
I
seeing
bet.
someone who had no hope in life to someone who's excited about life and loving every day.
So how many sessions did she have before she started to really feel a difference?
Well, she had, remember, 65 years of the other one. And I'm not saying about that. But I'm just saying the results she had with me.
Yeah.
But doing only one session a week, I saw things, even from the first couple sessions, first 3 sessions, things started shifting. People started acting nicer with her, and people who were mean with her, and all those gifts started appearing within the first 5-6 sessions. But the real transformation happened in a couple months, doing only one session a week, like 3 or so. And then it just...
That's still a short time.
That's really a very short time. But then she just started feeling so good. She kept staying with me, months and months on, because when you do the baseline clearing, then, you can go to there's different levels you can go. Like, let's say you know karate, and I know there's different levels. I think yellow belt, brown belt, eventually get to black belt. I mean, the person who has a yellow belt can, knock me down in 2 seconds flat. But if the yellow belt one fought with the black belt, that's a different story. The black belt definitely has a huge edge over the yellow belt. Well, I can take you to those next levels, like we cleared all the baseline work. Everything's flowing nicely in your life. Now you say, Deepak, I want to run this organization, or I want to go to this next managerial level. And every time I get there, I just keep hitting a ceiling of, I can't do this. I don't deserve this. I'll say, okay, now that you did that groundwork, clearing the imprints from your ancestry, now I can take you to that level. And then they take you to the next level. You see, because you don't have the skills and knowledge to go to those levels, and you have the limiting beliefs. But unless you clear the baseline, and then you can't go to the next level, like those karate levels, and then you eventually get to the black belt. So in other words, we are a work of art in process. There's no limit like, okay, now you're all done. You cleared all your lifelong things. No, it's not like that. We're constantly evolving. So there's no limit to how high you can go. So once you clear the baseline work, and so the key baseline work clearing is to clear the imprints that you picked up from your childhood. This is the foundational sessions you were asking about before, the 9 foundational sessions. Clear the imprints you picked up from your early childhood. We've all had them. Like I talked about, my bullying. Clear the imprints that you picked up from each parent, which we have specific patterns, which I can decode with each client when I work with them, that we picked up from each parent. And then what's going on in our current life, our current and past relationships, and lastly, our grandparents. That's the whole matrix that I help clear for people. Once you've done that baseline work, then we can go to new levels that, hey, I want to run this organization. I want to create a new company. I want to, whatever you want to do. I want to speak in front of audiences or whatever. We can go to those levels too. There's no limit.
And that's so helpful for so many people that, especially with it, fear of, like, I could have used this before we did this podcast. See, because it's hard to speak in public and a lot of that kind of thing too, so
sure. I
could see where that would be super helpful.
And
absolutely.
you had a question too.
I did have another question. So, this is more on the emotional level that we're talking about, but can you help people that, like, say they have Parkinson's and their voice is dropping because of the disease? So when it becomes a medical issue, is this still helpful for that? Because I do believe frequency is so healing. So I wasn't sure if you experienced that.
Yeah. So the interesting part of this work is no matter how strong a person's voice is or how soft it is, I can pick up the hidden emotions in any voice, even in a compromised voice like that. Nothing can be hidden from me because it's very, very high-end technology that's able to extract the energy in their voice, even if it's weak.
Okay.
And find the limiting emotion or limiting emotions that are in there. Like I'll have someone come to my office and say, or now it's not office, it's remote actually. Someone saying to me like, Deepak, I said, how's everything going? Obviously you came to see me, so I'm here to help you. He said, well, everything's going okay. Everything's flowing smoothly and I'm feeling good overall. And that's like, well, you must have come to me for some reason. So is I sure? But when I decode their voice, I'll pick up rage and anger and bitterness. And I'll say, okay, tell me what you're angry about, and not even angry, bitter about. Oh, I didn't say I was angry about it. It's okay. Go ahead and tell me. Okay, right before I came to this appointment with you, my boyfriend broke up with me. I lost my job, and I had a tire because I get flat. On my way to work, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's more realistic. So in other words, that. It tells what's really going on. Now, even with someone who's compromised health-wise and their voice is like that, I can still pick up the energy in their voice because I'm resonating every cell in their body with perfect harmony, you see.
Right.
And anything disharmonious, that is disharmonious thoughts, cannot coexist in a harmonized environment. I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't make medical claims. But what's interesting is I'll work on someone's, let's say, anger, rage, or grief. Different emotions I found are held in general in different organs. Anger tends to be held in the liver. Sadness and grief tends to be held, generally speaking, in the lungs. Sometimes they even have lung conditions. If you hold an emotion long enough in those organs, it could happen. I'm just saying. So I'll be working on them and then I'll clear that. They'll say, how do you feel? Oh, I feel really good. I feel light. I'm floating. I feel great. I said, and Deepak, that severe lower back pain that I had is gone. Can you believe it? I said, you never told me anything about any back pain. Oh, yeah. Remember I told you about, I said, no, you never said a word about it. Well, that neck pain, by the way, is also gone. Well, you didn't say anything about that either. Okay. So, I have seen all kinds of things like that as well, even though I didn't address them at all.
Right.
Just say.
That was my question. I was going to ask you if you saw any a correlation between clearing the patterns and physical symptoms disappearing, because there's so much correlation between the two, right? Making
Absolutely.
dis-ease in the emotions causes dis-ease in the body.
Absolutely.
Most of the
Absolutely.
time.
One of the most common things I see, when I look at everyone's client forums is have trouble sleeping, tossing and turning, wake up often, bloating and gas, indigestion, constipation, things like that. So oftentimes when I measure their voice, I find they're holding a lot of their emotions in their gut area, and then when I clear that, they're suddenly their digestion's fantastic. They're sleeping great. They're feeling happy for no reason. Yes, you can feel happy for no reason. I know it's hard to believe, but that's the kind of thing you can get with this kind of work. Otherwise people say, well, why are you so happy? Well, I'm happy because this and this and this. You don't have to explain it. If you're feeling happy, you're feeling happy.
Right.
So that's the kind of thing that we can get to. And think of it this way, right? If someone says, how do you feel about this situation? Well, Deepak, that's really hard for me to accept. Hard for me to digest, accept.
Right.
Body takes you literally.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And we're both energy workers, so we've experienced a lot of that.
Yeah.
So it makes complete sense to me that what you do would work really well on a lot of different areas of the body.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you had mentioned in the first podcast that you have an offering for viewers and listeners to have a consultation with you. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. I offer a complimentary 15-minute consult, no obligation with me. And we can do it through Zoom or phone, whichever you like. And all you have to do is go to my website, which is fastanxietyhelp.com. FASTANXIETY, help, HELP.com. If you go to that website, you can sign up for a complimentary no obligation consult with me, where I can listen to all the challenges going on in your life. You can just pour it out with me. And after listening to you and your energy, I will customize a plan specifically for you of how we can clear those limiting patterns and take you from the challenging emotional place you're in, where you're not able to release those emotions or thoughts, to a place of freedom where you feel peace and happiness and joy, and everything starts flowing for you. So I'll explain that all for you. So that's why I encourage people to do. And in addition, when you go to that website, check out the testimonials and see how so many people benefited, because you might be able to connect to them as well.
Thank you.
That's great.
We'll post that on the website. I mean, on the podcast.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
We'll make links to it. So is there any advice to give to any of our listeners out there, or any words of wisdom?
Well, a couple of things I'll say. I know a lot of your viewers and listeners have gone through some real challenging events in their life that some seem impossible. Like, oh, how am I going to get out of this situation? Or I had this trauma in my life and I just can't get out of my head. And, no matter how horrible it was, and no matter how hopeless it seems, even going forward, just know there is a way out. You do not have to live that same challenging life over and over again. You're not destined to live that. That's not your karma. If we think of that, you could have a positive karma. If you clear that limiting patterns, you can have a life that you've dreamed of, and things will flow your direction, even without saying any mantras or anything. And so, so that's the hope I want to leave everyone with, and just knowing that there's a way out, and I happen to find a way, my avenue with this approach. So, that's what I would say.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This has been a pleasure. And, your explanation of how it all works and everything was so clear. And I really appreciate that. And I'm sure the viewers do too.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
So thank you for being with us once again. It was a pleasure to have you back. And we ask our viewers and listeners to please leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe to support us and our message. We're building a community of like-minded people who want to live a more fuller life. So we welcome you on to our podcast journey. And until next time.
How is your intuition leading you to your next perfect step? And we'll see everyone next time. Thanks for listening and watching.